So I am going to introduce our guest today. His name is David Roskelley. He's a founding partner at R&R Environmental. That is a business that does industrial hygiene. They do comprehensive safety, health, and environmental industrial hygiene. He's got a master's in public health with an emphasis in industrial hygiene. And so that's interesting and exciting. There's a few more things about him that are also interesting. So he set a goal to climb the highest summit on every continent, which is an extraordinary goal. And if you think about the percentage of people that would even consider that as a goal, it's a very, very small group. And it's an even smaller group who would say that's not challenging enough. So he's set an additional goal, which is to summit the highest volcano on every continent, which is extraordinary. So we are very pleased to have with us today David Roskelley.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you. Part of what I do for a living is I teach at a red university to the north of us here, another red university, because this is kind of a red university as well. And so I move around when I talk, so I hope that's okay with you guys if I move around a little bit. What I'm going to do, just logistics-wise, I think I'm going to try to speak until about 12:05, 12:07, something like that, and then I'll open it up to questions. I haven't had a presentation. This is probably like my 200th time I've talked about, specifically about Mount Everest and climbing, and I'm going to try and tie it into entrepreneurship because I think there are definite parallels between the two. One of them right off the bat is you have to think outside the box. When you get up on a mountain, there's all kinds of variables that are thrown at you, weather being a big one. You know, I try to plan for everything and have backups, and I was a scout, raised in Eagle Scout, all that kind of good stuff, so I'm totally into be prepared. And I am prepared, but there's always things that the mountain's going to throw at you. And I would say it's the same with a business and being an entrepreneur. You can plan for everything, but at some point you just kind of have to launch and move forward and understand that you're going to have to think on your toes and change, because it's just going to happen. Storms come, weather comes, and you just kind of have to roll with it. So I do think that there's a lot of parallels with being an entrepreneur and climbing. So that's primarily what I want to focus on. So be thinking about some questions as I am talking to you guys this morning. So I always start off my presentations with a hearty namaste. Who knows who this is for bonus points? Who is that? That is the Dalai Lama. Yes, he's a leader of the Buddhist faith. And in Nepal, which is where Everest is, the very traditional greeting. Has anybody been to Nepal before? Ooh, I love it. One? Okay, that's good. If you haven't been to Nepal, I'm going to start sounding like the travel council for Nepal because it is an awesome country. People are so warm and inviting, and you could, without much effort, I say this usually to folks, any reasonably fit person could go hiking in the Khumbu region and make it pretty close to Everest Base Camp, if not to base camp. Climbing is a whole different matter, but just getting to base camp, you could spend 2 weeks there and it would literally change your life. This isn't hyperbole to say that. It is so gorgeous and the people are so nice and accommodating. It is just a wonderful place in the world to go visit. And I'm not on the Nepal Travel Council. I've been there 4 times now climbing. It's just an awesome place. So if you haven't put that on your to-do list, put it on your to-do list if you're the least bit outdoorsy or adventurous. But in Nepal, you put your hands together like this and bow and say namaste. So I'm going to say that to you, namaste, and then you have to say that back to me. Namaste. There you go. I love it. Very good. So it means the goodness in me recognizes the goodness in you. And when you're saying it back to me, you're essentially saying the same thing. As Americans, we get, assuming most everybody is American in here or at least lived in the United States a while, we get kind of callous with just a hey, hello, how are you doing? And you don't really mean much by it, and you really do when you're in Nepal specifically, you get the feel that people really care about you and they're just very kind and nice. So I think it's a wonderful place to go visit. So I want to talk to you guys for just a quick second about doing hard things and being focused on doing hard things. Starting a business is definitely not easy, very worth it. I'm totally glad that I started a business 22 years ago. and have a consulting firm as an environmental engineer. I love it. I love what I do. I love waking up every day and essentially kind of being in charge. Once in a while, I'm the founding partner of it, so I have the primary ownership of the business. And I like that. It fits me really, really well, but you have to make a lot of decisions. And my wife will attest to it. I have a wonderful wife. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my wife and my family. She's super, super supportive of me. Imagine I finished graduate school, or I wasn't even finished yet, and so I was graduating, defending my thesis in October, and this would have been in '97. My wife was pregnant with my son. He was going to be born in March. I had a decent job, and I just told my wife, I came home one day and I said, hey, by the way, I want to start a job. Start a different business. I don't want to do my job anymore. And she said, yeah, tell me more about it. And she said, I think it's great. You can succeed. Go. And we thought, if there was ever a time in my life, and I'll throw this out to you guys as well, you don't have to be married, or if you're just newly married, this is about the easiest time to start a business in your life, because it only gets more complicated from here. When you start having family, children, it's a wonderful thing, but it makes it a lot more challenging to want to go out and venture on your own. So if there was ever a time to start a business, I would say, now. Don't think of, in 10 years I'll do something like that then. Think about starting it right now. So my wife is super supportive, but it is challenging from time to time. It's not easy for sure. I just like doing difficult things. So let me read this quote to you, and I'll stand over here. So it says, all life demands struggle. Those who have everything given to them become lazy, selfish, and insensitive to the real values of life. The very striving and hard work that we so constantly try to avoid is the major building block in the person we are today. This is from like 100 years ago. This is Pope Pius XI. And believe it or not, this Pope, you don't think it, but anybody been to Mont Blanc or been to France or Italy and seen Mont Blanc? So believe it or not, this Pope was totally into climbing. And there is a route on Mont Blanc called the Pope Route, and it's named after him right there. And I love this quote by him. He got it, and this was over 100 years ago. And I think the same holds true today. I think, and I'm not going to stand here and be that adult that rails on the younger generation, and you guys have it so easy, and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say that because I remember when I was your age, people would say the same thing to me, and I didn't like it. So I'm not saying it to you. I'm just putting it up here, and I want you to think about this and think about doing difficult things. Don't shy away from stuff that's difficult. Embrace it. Grab it. You guys are students here, so you've already embraced a whole lot by getting into college and wanting to succeed, wanting to be successful. You're in here perhaps thinking about starting a business or being successful in your lives, and I'm sure you will be for sure, but grab every opportunity to do something difficult. So I usually challenge individuals when they're listening to me talk, especially young people. I want you to think about a goal, something difficult that you want to accomplish in your life. And this isn't something that you're going to accomplish like in a week or 2 weeks. This is like a big, giant goal. I want to go to the moon. I want to run a marathon. I want to, whatever it happens to be, something super difficult that might take a year or 2 or 3. I was raised to set goals. My parents were wonderful people, and they always taught me to set goals. They taught me to write goals down, and that way you're more apt to achieve them. I would extend to you an invitation to take it a step further. Write it down, because I think it is good to set goals and have like a year plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan, whatever it is. But you also need to share some of your goals with somebody significant in your life. It could be a spouse, could be a ecclesiastical leader, a brother, a sister, whoever it is. And the reason you're going to share it with them is because you've put it out there. You've actually said it. Now I got to do something about it. And the hope is that whoever you've shared this with is going to be a good enough example to you that they're going to want you to accomplish this goal, right? So if you tell a brother, hey, I really want to run a marathon, would you be interested in doing that with me? Yeah, maybe I would. And so, well, let's start training together. And then when it's time to sit down with a bowl of fried chicken or a bucket of fried chicken, I should say, and some potato chips, you might think twice about sitting down. I like fried chicken just as much as anybody, but sitting down with a big bucket of it is not a great idea if you want to run a marathon. So hopefully that person can kind of get you lined up and keep you on track to accomplish that goal. So think about that, and if you take nothing else away from what I'm telling you today, think about that as a goal you want to set, a week from now or a couple weeks from now, but really ponder it. You guys are young, you've got your life ahead of you. Think about some big things that you want to accomplish with your life. So this is something that I chose to do. Even as a kid, I always wanted to climb Mount Everest. I had an uncle who climbed Mount Everest, and I said, I am doing that. I grew up in Chicago, which our highest point in Illinois is actually man-made. When I was a kid, it was called the Sears Tower. It's now called the Willis Tower. So I did not see mountains until I was about 13. I came out here to Utah with some friends from Chicago, and driving across I-80 through Wyoming and saw mountains and said, dog to a bone. It just, something went off in my mind. I said, ooh, I must go there. And so since probably teenage years, and I came out to school here in Utah, and I just love being in the mountains. I love spending time at elevation. I just absolutely adore it. And I always wanted to climb Everest, so I set a goal to climb the 7 highest points on the 7 points, the highest point on each continent throughout the world. So I set a goal to do that, because you can't just go climb Everest right here. If you haven't climbed anything else that high, there's a pretty high probability you're going to pass away. So I started smaller and did some other smaller climbs, and then started clicking these all off. In 2016, I was fortunate enough to hit the high point of Antarctica. It's called Mount Vincent. So I finished the goal in 2016. At that time, there were only about 300 people that had summited this what's called traditionally the 7 summits. It's getting bigger, because this is definitely a much more popular thing to do now. I mean, it's becoming a thing. More and more people are doing it. And so I finished this, and my wife said, what are you going to do now? And I said, I don't know, maybe climb the volcanoes. And so I started doing some research, and what's interesting is very, very few people have climbed the high volcano on every continent. In fact, no American has done it yet. So to date, I have, let me back up for a second. My wife teases me all the time because I do a little bit too much. I take it to another degree. And I climbed Mont Blanc in Europe because some people say Elbrus, which is here in Russia, is not part of Europe. So I climbed Mont Blanc as well as Elbrus. And then down here in this wider area is called Oceania. If you talk to an Aussie, any Aussies here? If you talk to an Aussie, they say it's just the continent of Australia. But the rest of the world pretty much believes that this whole area is Oceania. So it includes New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, parts of Melanesia. So in my humble opinion, the much, much harder climb is Carson's Pyramid. So I did that one, and then my wife and I, the very last one we did went and climbed Kosciuszko. The funny thing about this is you can take a chairlift all the way to most of the top of it. It's like only 7,200 feet, so it's not really a mountaineering challenge. So most people do this one. So I decided, okay, I'm going to start climbing the volcanoes. And as I started researching it, I realized that Kilimanjaro is both the high point of Africa as well as the volcano. So I already had that one. I already had Elbrus. I went down to Mexico, to Pico de Orizaba. That's outside of Mexico City. And that's the high point for North America. A lot of people don't realize this is all North America right here. If you have had your geography class lately, you know that's North America. This is South America. So down in South America, it's Ojos del Salado. That's in the Andes. So I was down there in January, because this is south of the equator here. You want to go climbing in this area of the world in our winter time, because it's nicer temperatures when you go down there in January and December. So I was fortunate enough to get that one. I went last year to, of all places, and I think this is why no American has done the 7 volcanic summits yet. It's because Mount Damavand is in Iran. So of all the places to go as an American, I went to Iran last year, and I was there on the 4th of July, which is really weird. Those of you that know history, I'm old enough to have remembered when the Iranians took American hostages and held them for the better part of a year. And they were released, thankfully. But I had a wonderful time there. I really liked the Iranian people. I'm not a fan of their government and some of what they're doing with enriching uranium and things like that, but it is a wonderful place to go. When and if that ever gets all figured out over there, that is a cool place. I'd like to go back. I'm not going back right now, but at some point I'd love to go back to Iran. Real quickly, Mount Gilloway, that's also on Papua New Guinea, so that's the high volcano for this area of the world. And I was just down there in in June. And then the last one is Mount Sidley. So in January, I'm going to go back to Antarctica and climb Mount Sidley, which is the high volcano for down there. If I do that, my understanding, I've talked to some folks, I will likely be the first American to do that. So we'll see. There's been 2 Russians and a Canadian and an Indian guy, so I'll be the 5th human alive to do that. And I thought, wow, this is weird. Nobody's done that yet. So we'll see. Stay tuned. It's not the high point, but it's a high volcano. Thank you. This brings me joy. I absolutely love this. And I'll say this about being an entrepreneur. It gives you time to do this. I'm not running around doing this all the time. This year I've done 2 climbs, which is a little bit rare for me, but usually I'll do one big climb like this a year. And having your own business allows you to do this type of hobby. I call it a hobby. So what am I going to do after this? I've already set my goals on this place right here, and you can laugh a little bit. That's fine. I want to go to the high point of the moon. It was only identified about 5 years ago. It doesn't even really have a name yet. They just call it the Selenium Summit. It's on the dark side of the moon. You can laugh if you want to. So I've heard Jim Harbaugh speak a couple times. Does anybody know who Jim Harbaugh is? So he's a coach for Michigan right now. He's a football player. He's super inspiring if you've ever listened to him. And I've heard him say, if your goals aren't big enough that it causes people to laugh, your goals aren't big enough. So that's why I set big goals like this. So I want to go to the moon. This is from Apollo 16. You can see there actually are mountains on the moon like this. This is from 1971. That is an electric vehicle. So they drove an electric vehicle on the moon. The summit of the moon, I'm not talking about hiking to the high point, because it's probably, from what I've read and studied, it's only about a 3-degree slope. So if you're going to go to the moon, you're going to drive to the high point of the moon. I want to go with Elon Musk. I don't know him yet, but I'm working on it. And I want to convince him to drive something electric, some kind of a Tesla to the summit of the moon. So look at this right there. If you think I'm crazy, this is electric from 1971, and you got a guy driving on the moon. So it's not as far-fetched as you think. And I do think in the next 10 years, you're going to have more and more people starting to go to the moon. It's going to become more and more commonplace. If this was back in the 20s or 30s and you said, I'm going to fly an airplane to Asia, and you were here in the United States, people would look at you like you are looking at me right now saying, I'm going to go to the moon. It's kind of crazy, but I think we're going to have an explosion of technology, and more people in your lifetime will be going to the moon. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody in this room, or a handful of you, in 40 years from now, whatever it is, there's commercial travel, and you could go there and get a job and work and whatever it happens to be. So unless there's some big disaster or technology drops off, I think this is very possible. So you can say that joker in my entrepreneur class at SUU told me about this. So let me move on really briefly here to Everest and getting to the summit of this. So this is quite a challenge to get to the summit of this mountain here. I'll be brief here because I don't want to take too much time. When you go for the summit, it takes about 2 months. So you start here at base camp, and at base camp, you're letting your body acclimatize. It's really difficult to go high on this mountain. Our bodies were not made to live at this elevation, and you feel it all the time. There's not enough oxygen here, so at the summit, there's only about 1/3 the available oxygen that there is at sea level. So every breath you take here, you'd essentially be taking 3 up there to get the same volume of oxygen molecules. So it's really, really difficult. In fact, at the summit, this is how fast you move. You're going to take a step, and I'm purposely going slow. You're going to take 3 breaths like this, and then you're going to take another step. And that's a sprint at the summit up there. You're not moving very, very fast at all. It's a really slow process. So when you leave base camp, you're going to go to camp 1. You spend a night, you come all the way back down and let your body rest for several days. You might do that rotation. We call these rotations. And what you're doing is you're acclimatizing. So by going up here, you're helping your physiology adjust to a higher elevation, and it triggers some chemistry in your body to produce more red blood cells. Red blood cells are what hauls oxygen around your bloodstream, and you need a lot of them to be able to do something like this. So you come back down, you might go to camp 2, spend a night or 2, you're gonna come back down. This is like 3 weeks already. You're gonna go do this again, come all the way back down. You might be approaching 4 weeks, maybe your 5th or 6th week, you're gonna tag camp 3. You might spend the night there. The saying is, if you can spend the night at camp 3 somewhat comfortably, you're ready to go for the summit. So you're gonna come all the way back down. We actually went down the mountain another 2,000 feet and rested for about a week. Came back up, went to camp 2, spent the night. Camp 3, spent the night. Came up here, rested, summited, and then came back down. So when we went for the summit, people ask this all the time. When we went for the summit, this was like a 5-day round trip from leaving from base camp. That distance, because people always ask this as well, that total distance right there, I think is like 3.5 miles, something like that. So it does not translate into any scale that you're used to at all. Like, I can run a 5K in 20 minutes. Can I not do this? It does not work that way. So the Sherpa people that live there, those guys are rock stars. Their DNA is different than ours. We are definitely inferior to them. And these guys can go up it extremely quick. But basically anybody that isn't born in that region and have those telomeres and those DNA markers, they're not going to go to the summit as quick as those guys do. Even people that are super fit, it just doesn't work, because if you go too quick, you're going to get elevation sick. You're going to get some sickness. So I've got a little video clip here. This is not mine, so I can't take credit for it, but and that's the yellow band right there. This is called the Geneva Spur, and that's the South Col. If you ever read Into Thin Air, that Krakauer book, or saw the movie, a lot of it happens right at the South Col. That's the balcony, South Summit, and then there's the top right there. So it's approaching 30,000 feet. It's 29,000 plus feet. It's a ways up there. So next time you're flying somewhere, if you want the view from the summit, just look out the window and you can get kind of a view of what it might look like at the summit. I took this picture with my iPhone from an adjacent peak called Kala Patar. The peak that I'm on is almost 19,000 feet, and they consider it a trekking peak. You could go here. It's not that impossible to get to this point. You trek up the valley, and I don't know how good the resolution is here, but you might be able to see some climbers coming up like this, and then see this guy's got a piece of paper. He had the nerve of holding up a paper while I was taking that picture. I don't know why he was doing that, but this is a trekking peak that you can just go climb to get acclimatized, and then you can actually see the summit of the mountain right here. Base camp's over here, and it's too close to the summit, so you can't see it. You can hear it because the wind's always blowing it like 100 plus miles an hour up there. In fact, this is a cloud, that is a cloud, those are all clouds. That's snow blowing off the summit at about 100 to 125 miles an hour. You can hear it, and it's really disconcerting when you're down here at base camp, because you think, how on earth am I going to go up there? So what happens, there's this phenomenon that happens the last 2 weeks of May, and it happens like clockwork every year. The jet stream is always blowing on top of the mountain, and these big monsoonal storms form in the Bay of Bengal down in India, and they start pushing north. And as they push north, they actually push the jet stream aside. So your timing before they get there, so about May 15th to May 31st, give or take, that 2 week period is when everybody saw, 99% of the people summit the mountain. Out of that 2 weeks, there might be 4 or 5 summit days where the conditions are just right to get to the top. So when I got to the top, and I'm going to show you some summit pictures in a second here, it was almost as calm as this room. It was about 25 below zero, but it was perfect, you know, from a wind standpoint, perfectly clear skies. It was really nice. We just got dumb lucky. So people always ask, why is the mountain so crowded? It's crowded because there's only 2 weeks out of the year you can climb, and out of that 2 weeks you might get 4, 5, 6 days if you're lucky, and everybody has the same weather report, so they're all jamming to the summit at the exact same time. That's why it's so difficult. So when you leave base camp, you go through what's called the Khumbu Icefall, and you climb on all these crazy ladders. The Khumbu Icefall, the way to describe it is like a frozen waterfall, and pieces break off, and there's really no other way to span this right here. So this is 2 ladders left together. It might be, you know, a couple hundred meters deep, so 500, 600 feet deep, and you can't climb down and come back up the other side. So, you know, you have to cross stuff like this as well. Or this, where you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ladders, you know, hanging on an angle like that. You fall into this, that might be 700 feet, something like that. So you're not going to climb down and back up the other side. The whole way up the route are fixed lines. So they have a team of guys called the Icefall Doctors. And I'm going to leave these up here. If you guys want to come up afterwards and take a peek, you're welcome to it. This is essentially what you go up the mountain on. I'm sure there's a lot of folks in here who climb. You wear a harness just like any other. I mean, the high altitude harnesses are a little bit bigger. The buckles are a little bit bigger just so you can handle them with gloves. And then you're going to get a bigger harness because it's got to fit over your suit. So the locking beaner hooks into your harness. And we're going to pretend my belt loop is a harness here, but I know you that know climbing would never hook your harness into a belt loop, right, guys? I feel compelled to say that. So this goes on to the fixed line right here, and this is an ascender. And so this ascender, if you feel right here, and if you want to come up, you can check it out. One way is really smooth, the other is sharp, like that tongue, and that goes up on the rope. You can hang a Volkswagen Beetle from this, and that will hold. The rope might not, but that will. And then this is a safety, and that's it. That's what you're going up the fixed line on. So if you were to slip, this is going to bite back and basically prevent you from falling down into the pit of despair right there. So that's, you know, that's your climbing harness. I'm going to leave that right there. And then the other thing that you're using are crampons. And so this is an 8,000 meter boot. And you've got crampons on the bottom. These aren't sharp right now because I haven't sharpened them from a recent climb I did. So you can handle them, but you can file these down to really sharp. They work, they bite into the ice. They are phenomenal for what they do. You'd be surprised this isn't as heavy as you think. It looks really big and it's somewhat heavy, but I think this is about 2.5 or 3 pounds with the crampons. So these are the boots that you're going up with, has a liner inside and the gaiter built in. But these work really, really well. You're not going to go up on the mountain without something like this on because you literally will freeze your feet off. So even with this, it's difficult. So I'll leave this up here and you guys can take a look at that afterwards. And you're climbing a ladder with this. You have to figure out how to put your boot right on the rung of the ladder right there. It gets complicated from time to time. So that's going up the Khumbu Icefall. That's the Western Khum. And Camp 2 is right there, if you remember back to that other diagram a minute ago. This is up on Camp 3. So anytime you're going to leave the tent, Camp 3 is just perched on the side of a slope called the Khumbu Face, and it's about a 60-degree angle. And so anytime you leave your tent, you're going to clip in because they've literally had people. This is up about 2,000 feet, and it's just straight boilerplate ice. If you were to slip, you'd have a 2,000-foot run. You're not going to stop yourself. And lots of people actually pass away every year from sliding off of the Khumbu Face like that. So had to be really careful at Camp 3. When you leave Camp 3, you get in line with like 100 of your best friends, or this season it was like 200 or 300 of your best friends, and you're starting up the fixed line. So you can see the fixed line right here. And you're just getting in line with all these guys. Camp 3 is where you start with supplemental oxygen. And so I brought this, and if you guys would like me to, I'll throw it on really quickly. Should I put that on? Yeah. Okay. So this is this is essentially what you're going to put on. And that goes up on your face like this, and then that hooks to an oxygen cylinder. And the oxygen cylinder's in your backpack like this. And you're breathing about 2 to 4 liters a minute. As you're going up the mountain, people ask how many. We used about 5 cylinders as we're going up. They also ask how much do you use? And the answer is it depends. It depends on your breathing rate. It depends on your lung volume. It depends on how much activity you're working with. So there's a lot of factors that factor into it. But we used 5 oxygen cylinders, and our Sherpa that we climbed with, his name was Tile Nuru. Before we went up on the mountain, he went up and placed them at strategic spots. So we get to a spot, there was a fresh one for us. We grab it up and then keep on going with it. And anytime we carried a couple with us, and then there's a regulator on top of it, and that just hooks right into it. I'm sure many of you have seen ice axe before, so I'll leave that up here and let you guys see that as well. I'll leave my mask up here if you promise not to put it on, because that's gross. So I've had people put it on before, so I'm going to leave that there. And I want to use that again, so if you want to look at it, you're more than welcome to take a quick peek at it, but you can come up and see that stuff in a minute here if you want to. So this is going from Camp 3 to up towards the yellow band, as they call it. This is from the yellow band looking down. So we were on our way down, we'd already summited, and we've still got all these people coming up the mountain right here. People ask and say, do you have to have a red suit to climb the mountain? And the answer is no. This is just a popular color. You just want something contrasting with the snow. So it's, a lot of people wear blue, red. I've seen pink. Some people will wear green, but I think blue and red are the two kind of most of the colors. Sometimes like a blaze yellow or orange are the main ones. You don't want to wear a white suit. Be like golfing with a green golf ball. Not a good idea. You want to be seen. If there's an emergency, you want somebody to be able to see you up there.
Look at this scene at Mount Everest. Each of those lights in the distance there, a climber. 4 have died. Their deaths being blamed on a sort of traffic jam. And ABC's Ron Claiborne tonight, and why so many are trying to get to the top right now.
These are images from high up on Everest. The path to the peak clogged with climbers, as many as 200. Gambling with their very lives. In this time-lapse video, you can see the headlamps of the climbers nearing the 29,000-foot peak.
Looking up the Black Mountain, you can see at least 100 pinpricks of lighting. All are vertical lines going straight into the stars.
The logjam has been caused by so many people rushing to get to the top on the last weekend of the climbing season. But the going is slow, and the oxygen runs out quickly as they pass through the notorious death zone of thin air and sub-zero temperatures. National Geographic is documenting the ascent by one of the teams, which today reached the summit, where they took this photo.
They all got the back dozens upon dozens of climbers. If they're never going, have no business being at Everest.
Some have made it to the top, including a 73-year-old Japanese woman.
That's amazing.
Now the oldest person to ever climb Mount Everest. But 4 died this week, and an American climber collapsed on his way down. An Israeli climber found him and abandoned his own summit attempt to carry him to safety. Both are now suffering severe frostbite. Everest dangers are well known. The single deadliest ascent when 8 people perished in 1996.
When things start going wrong and the clock starts ticking away, that's when things can go wrong in a big way and in a hurry.
This year, there are just too many people on the mountain, making the treacherous trek to the top of the world that much more dangerous. Ron Claiborne, ABC News, New York.
Unfortunately, since then, we've had deadlier days on Everest. This season, I have a quick video clip on that as well. This season was no exception. We lost a number of climbers this year, including a friend of mine from Utah. His name's Don Cash. So this is Camp 4, and you're getting ready to go up onto the summit right here. That's about halfway. That's called the balcony right there. And this isn't my picture. I wish I had taken it, but I like it, so I included it in my slide here. But you can see the route with the headlamps going up the mountain right here. Just a beautiful picture. That one is my photo. So you start climbing about 7:30 at night, and we summited about 7:30 the next morning. So it took us about 12 hours to summit, but you're climbing all night. And for about 5 minutes, you get this nice summit shadow, this pyramid out over Tibet. Just a gorgeous view of that rising. It's almost unbelievable to see that. It only lasts about 5 minutes, so it's really, really neat to see that. As you're getting closer to the summit, you can see when we summited in 2013, we think we were the 10th, 11th, and 12th people to summit that particular day. We summited on May 19th, and you can see we were on our way up. I don't think anybody had come down yet, so you can kind of count. This is the Hillary step right here, and then there's the true summit right there. This picture, on the other hand, is from this climbing season, and so I'm comparing, contrasting 13 with 19. There's just too many people up on the mountain. You know, you could probably go through. There's enough resolution. You could count all these people. 100 people? I don't know. That is not climbing to me. I'm not faulting any of these folks here because it is what it is, but that's just way too many people up on the mountain. And unfortunately, we had people pass away this climbing season.
A dangerous gridlock at the top of the world's tallest mountain. At least 5 climbers have died over a 48-hour period, including an American. ABC's Julia McFarlane has more.
A traffic jam on Mount Everest has now claimed the lives of 5 climbers in the last 3 days, including Utah climbing enthusiast John Cash, when he suddenly fainted from high-altitude sickness Wednesday. Experts say an area known as the death zone, where oxygen measures at 1/3 the normal level, could be to blame. Climbers like mountain guide Garrett Madison wasting hours of precious oxygen as they wait for 150-mile-per-hour winds to ease.
There were probably a couple of hundred climbers up there, and it did create some congestion on the route, some delays.
Experts tell ABC News supplemental oxygen is an absolute necessity when climbing this part of the mountain that soars over 26,000 feet. Experts say overcrowding at the top of the world is making the mountain more dangerous than ever.
This year, it's been a particularly windy season, and so once the weather window developed and we had a chance to go for the summit, everybody went pretty much the same time.
According to Nepal's Department of Tourism, a record-breaking 381 permits were issued this year. And with each climber requiring a Sherpa to guide them, lines reached epic proportions.
Instead of taking maybe 12 hours to do the round trip, they were taking 20 hours. And when you take that long and you run out of supplemental oxygen, it's just a deadly combination.
Well, the Nepalese government's only requirement for a permit is about $11,000 US. No physical tests are required. Whit?
So they're working on that right now to change that, and they might make some changes for the 2020 climbing season. So I like putting this picture up there as well because I want you to notice something about this photo. When you look at the horizon, does it look flat? Do you see, who sees some curve there? Yep, I think you can see some curve there. So if you're in that like flat Earth group, I'm going to try to prove you wrong here. And when I go to the moon, I'll send a picture back to show that it is indeed round. You do know that there are like groups of people now, and I don't know if it's like joke, tongue-in-cheek, but there's like some pretty high-profile people, some NBA stars that think the world is flat and it's all a big conspiracy theory. I'm not in that camp, but this is one of my pieces of proof. I took that with my iPhone. Actually, my friend Steve took that because that's me standing right there. This is on our way down from the summit after we'd already been to the top. If you look right here, you can start seeing some of these climbers. That's the very, very top right there. And I'll zoom in here and you can see how crowded even this was in 2013 right there. So that's a view from the top looking down as we were getting ready to come down. And that's the top of the Hillary step. It gets super, super crowded right there. So there is my summit shot right there. I was successful in making it to the summit on May 19th. One fun thing about the date of this is my wife's birthday is May 18th, and the entire way up the overnight as we were climbing up, remember this is 7:30 in the morning in Nepal, which is 7:30 in the evening back here in Utah, so that's May 18th. So it's my wife's birthday, and the whole way I'm climbing up, I kept chanting, I can't die on my wife's birthday. I can't die on my wife's birthday. I can't die on my wife's birthday. So thankfully I didn't. The other fun thing about this is May 19th is our wedding anniversary. So this is how cool my wife is. She let me go on her birthday and our wedding anniversary. So that is a pretty spectacular gal, if you ask me. I'll praise her all day and twice on Sunday. So that's my summit photo right there. I do want to show you this picture right here, and this is kind of meant tongue-in-cheek as well. You'll notice, look at that summit picture and then look at that picture right there. I will assure you I'm alive and well, and I'm standing in front of you. So this is my version of fake news. ABC News, which I have great respect for them, they reported on Don Cash passing away. He was from Utah. Well, an intern didn't do their homework, and they decided to use my photo for the summit photo for this particular news piece. So I had some friends reach out to me and say, "Are you alive?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" Turn on the news. So somebody sent me a clip of it, and I said, "Well, that's not good." And I was kind of chuckling a little bit. And I have a son right now. He's in Brazil on a mission, and somebody said, "Hey, you're not talking to your son all the time. If he sees this, that's going to be traumatic for him." And I said, "Yeah, you're right." So I got on the web. I don't know anybody in ABC News, and I sent an email to just general inquiries and said, "Hey, you guys got the story wrong. Here's my photo." And like the next morning when I woke up, I had an email in my inbox from the senior producer. He said, "Can we call you?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "We are horribly sorry." And I said, "It's all right. I know everybody makes mistakes. It's fine. I just want you to retract it. Just set the record straight." So thankfully for me, they overturned the fake news due to an editing error. An incorrect image was used in Thursday's broadcast. The story about American climber is another image of David Roskelley, who is alive and well. So I am alive and well, but I didn't think fake news existed until I had to experience this right here. So just a few more summit pictures, and I'm going to wrap up in just like 2 minutes here. So this is, people always ask, what does it look like at the very summit? That's what it looks like. I don't go to the summit for the view, although this is an awesome view. I just love the experience. I love setting the goals and reaching, a point like this. People have asked, would you do it again? And my answer is no, because there's too many other things to climb. And I absolutely feel like I kind of used up some of my 9 lives doing this, so I'm not going to go back and do this again. There's too many other things that I want to climb. That's the very, very top of the world. What I'll tell you about this photograph right here is this is a little box that was put up there, and if you stand up on your tippy toes and look in that box, there's a brass Buddha in there. So I reached over and kind of said namaste and touched that little spire right there. Each team has a climbing liaison from the government, and they tell all the teams, please don't stand on the summit because we believe deity resides. There's like 3 religious groups that believe their God or deity resides at the summit. So out of respect, please don't stand on the very summit. So I did not stand on the very summit, but I will tell you I touched that point because I'm not going back, and I didn't want anybody to say, you didn't get to the top. So I touched that little point right there. I will tell you that right now, but I did not stand on the top because I have respect for all face. I think that's an important thing to mention. Okay, so this is essentially my final slide, and this is the one that I am most proud of. So let me just spend 30 seconds on this, and then I'll open it up to questions. So this is a picture of, let's see, where am I? That's me right there. There's my boys, and there's my wife right there. For 7 years in a row, we'd go to Tijuana and build homes. And we built homes for folks that definitely couldn't help themselves. So when we'd go for spring break, and my kids would donate their spring break to go do this. So we would go down with a big group of people. And when we showed up at this particular house, the folks, the family, and here's a couple of the family members right here, they had cardboard boxes and like a patio umbrella and some lawn chairs. That was their house. That was where these folks were living. And this is a very poor area of Tijuana. If you've been down there, there's Tijuana, and then there's like really, really poor areas of Tijuana. So after what I just showed you and what I've accomplished with climbing, I am most proud of this picture right here. And this is the message I want you to take away from what I'm telling you right here. I am more proud of this, and I love that I was able to serve and help other people. And looking at this picture, I get more of a proud feeling and more emotion out of looking at this, having helped others, than summiting high points in the world. That should tell you something about how important this is to me and how important I think it is to share with you guys, You need to think beyond yourself and be helping other folks. This is the key takeaway, at least as far as I'm concerned, especially you guys. Think beyond yourself and get to a point where you can go help other people. So you're going to be successful. You're going to have successful businesses. Never lose sight of reaching out and helping other people. Okay? Thank you very much, guys, and namaste. And if you want, we'll have some questions here. Yes? Do you ever think about going to the yeah, we'll go to the guy in the pink shirt, the gentleman in the pink shirt, and then we'll come back to you. Yeah. Pink shirt is first. Go ahead. That's fine. Okay, ladies first.
I was just asking about your company, R&R.
Yeah.
What made you decide to found that and like what you guys do?
My dad always was, my dad had a great job and he worked for a corporation for 43 years, and he repeatedly told me as a kid, go be, if you want to have success, you want to make money, do something on your own. And so he was always kind of planting in me the desire to have my own business. So, and it's good. It doesn't suit everybody, but I love it. It's perfect. Good question.
I was going to say, have you ever thought about going to the deepest?
No, I'm not really. So Mauna Kea on the Big Island of Hawaii, if you take it from the base, it's actually taller than Everest. It's like 30,000 feet. I've been to the top of that as well. So there's no, not right now, no. I still like going to the high points. Yeah. Yeah, I did. So Denali took me 2 tries, and people have asked, which one's the most difficult? Denali, in my humble opinion, is the most difficult. It's colder. And I would never have said this when I started seriously climbing probably 15 years ago. And I'm going to just throw it out there now. Hopefully you realize I'm of sound mind. I do believe that each mountain has a unique personality and spirit. I can't deny it. I don't know what it is, but I've spent enough time in the outdoors and at elevation now to realize that and I don't wear like pyramids on my head and have crystals in my pocket or whatever. I do believe that. And I think Denali is mean and she doesn't want people climbing on her. So she does everything to kick you off. You guys are supposed to laugh a little bit. I'm not. I am serious, but I don't know if you're looking at me like that guy is nuts. But Denali took me 2 tries. I was climbing with a guy. The first time I went, unfortunately, got sick. And when you're a team, he was very nice, said, hey, I'll stay at Camp 14 and you guys go summit. And I said, we can't leave you here for like 5-6 days. And he was developing pneumonia, getting a bad cough. As it was, we turned around when we did and we kind of barely got him out of there. So you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? And there's no way, I couldn't live with myself if I selfishly said, no, yeah, we're going to the summit, and then he dies or worse up on the mountain somewhere, right? So we got him down, and then I came back the following year and summited. Yeah, good question.
So when you're setting your big goals, and most people don't believe you or whatever, think you're crazy, how do you get over that and your own self-doubt? If you have
So people, because I've done a lot of things now, people don't necessarily think I'm crazy anymore. So I've gotten over a lot of that. Like my wife, when she married me, she knew I liked to climb and do outdoor things. But I did tell her I wanted to go do Everest, and she was like, really? This was back when we first got married. And it just took setting smaller goals. Have that big goal out there, but set these smaller goals and just start doing kind of these smaller things and getting success on that, getting some confidence. Because if you want to go climb Everest and you haven't done any training and you're just going to try to go do it, you're likely going to fail. And in that instance, there's a big margin for you're going to die. So you don't want that to happen. So just set these smaller goals and get all that confidence, on some smaller goals for sure. Whatever it is, right? If it's climbing or whatever. That's a good question. Yes, sir.
If you're trying to hang out with Elon Musk, how come you're not trying to climb Olympus Mons?
I want to do that too, but exactly what I want to do. So Olympus Mons is a high point in our solar system, and that's on Mars, and it's like 70,000 feet. The problem is, I don't mind sharing with you. I'm fairly open. I'm 50. And I think a realistic goal, I have probably about 12, 13 years of it's very difficult on your body to go to outer space. I think I've probably got 12 or 13 years of enough fitness that I could actually handle a trip to to the moon and handle all the G-forces and, you know, be of sound mind where I'm not going to have a serious health complication, I would love to go to Mars. I just don't think it's going to be there in that time period. But I'm going to start with, remember, small goals. So we're going to start with the moon first. If I get that, then we'll go to Olympus Mons, right?
Yeah, I guess a more serious question that I had was, I noticed you didn't really talk about like your business at all. And so my question is like, do you utilize like your business life to essentially fund your?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so the money I'm earning from my business allows me the freedom to be able to go do things like this. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And was that always the intention?
No, not necessarily. I just knew it kind of just fell together because I always knew I wanted to climb. And in order to do stuff like this, you have to have basically the resources. Bottom line, you have to have money or it's not going to happen, right? And you've got to have the desire to do it, and then you have to have the time. So if you're punching a clock, it's really difficult. I mean, there's nothing wrong with punching a clock, very noble, but that makes it really difficult to get time and be where you need to be, right? So you're an entrepreneur, you have your own business, now, I would not recommend doing something like this in the first year or 2 or 3 of starting a business because it's all hands on deck. You know, you're gonna be going nonstop. So I would not do that then. So my business was going about 10 years before I really started, feeling good enough where I could kind of get away and do something like that. So, yeah, that's a good question. Maybe one more question because I know we're over time here. Is it all right if we have one more question? Maybe we don't. That was as good as one as any to finish on. So I'll say namaste and thank you guys. Namaste. Thank you. Oh, that's awesome. I love it.
We want to present David with a Cedar Award and
that is really nice. Thank you very much.
Coming down here. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I'm touched. That is a beauty. I'm going to put that right in my office. That's very nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. I like that. Yeah, very good.